Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am making some gifts for teacher appreciation, back to school, that kind of thing. This particular set is actually going to be for one of my oldest sister's birthday, and I decided that I would kind of translate this over into making some teacher appreciation and back to school gifts. So it's kind of a long one, and I'm just going to show you the box. You can fill this however you want. I'll give you some things that I plan on filling this with, but really that part is really self-explanatory and you can adapt that however you choose. I'm just going to show you how to make the basis of the box. Now, this was based off of a Miss Sherry. She is Posh Paper Lady here on YouTube, and she used file folders to create this, and I decided to adapt it to use 12 by 12 paper because I don't have file folders and I don't really want to go out and buy any. So this is how I chose to kind of adapt and take inspiration from a project of hers, and I will be sure to list her YouTube channel down below. So let's get into it. So we are going to make 3 boxes. We're going to wrap a jacket around it, we're going to put a platform on it, and then I plan to put maybe a pocket at the top of it, and we'll see how that kind of goes. I don't have that all pinned down yet, but we'll see how it goes. And then we will also talk about things that we can fill it with. So let's go ahead and dive in because this might be a long one. So you will need 3 of these. These are 8 1/4 by 12. And we're gonna make 3 of these to create kind of the dividers and sections for our overall large box. So like I said, 8 1/4 by 12. On the short side, so on the 8 1/4 side, we're going to score at 1 on both sides. So 1, flip it around, and 1. Okay? Then you're going to flip it to the 12-inch side, and you're going to score it 1/2 inch. This is going to give you kind of a nice fold over. You're going to score it 5 1/2, and it's 6 1/2. And then I'm going to rotate it to the opposite 12-inch side and score one more time at 1/2. Or you could do 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 1/2, and 11 1/2. Up to you. So that's all of our scoring. Like I said, you're going to need to do this 3 times for the box that we're making today. So I'm going to erase my pencil marks here. Even though this is going to be on the bottom of the box, you wouldn't see it, but I'm going to go ahead and erase that just to be safe. So I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish all of my score marks here. We'll do this very quickly. I'm going to try to make sure that things are straight as I'm folding and burnishing. I do apologize if you hear noises in the background. It is summertime, so I've got kids home and attempting to nap. And so I do apologize if you hear any noises in the background. Okay, so this is everything folded and burnished. Super easy so far, right? Right. Okay, so as of right now, this box is symmetrical. So we're gonna do a couple of things to give this a much nicer finish and have a nice finish edge. So one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pick a side. So I'm gonna pick this side here, and I'm going to cut straight up this vertical score line, stopping at that first horizontal score line, and I'm going to cut to the left of this score mark here, and we're essentially going to remove that score mark on one side. On this one, I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to cut at an angle on this long rectangle here, stopping and kind of trying to meet these corners here. So we are going to get, well, maybe we're going to get this. Okay, this is what we got. All right, we're gonna repeat that on this same side over here. So I'm gonna cut in at a little angle, and then I'm gonna cut straight across to the right of this score line right here. Okay, we're gonna get this. So this is what we have so far. This is what we're doing on one side. We're gonna do something different on this other side. So this other side, we're gonna repeat this angle here, and we're gonna angle on this other rectangle here just to essentially remove our score mark. We're gonna make a little triangle to remove our score mark, okay? We're gonna do that again. So to the right, angling in to create a triangle, to the left, angling in to create a triangle, and pop that out, okay? That's what we get. And then, because this is actually going to fold into the box, I'm going to just do a slight angle on either side of this, just to give that a better chance of fitting into the box better. So this is what we have so far. If you want to take a screenshot, you can. We have removed the small rectangles on this side. We've kept them, but notched into them on the other side. Okay? Now we need to make our glue tabs. So that's what we're going to do on this side. So I'm going to cut straight to the right side of this score mark, and I'm going to cut straight to the left of this score mark, and then I'm going to notch in or miter cut into this smaller like square right here. Then I'm going to remove my little rectangles here. We're going to repeat that on the other side one more time. So I'm going to cut to the right straight of this score mark, to the left straight of this score mark, and I'm going to notch in on my little rectangle here and remove, oops, that will be on the inside of the box, so you'll never know that I ripped that a little bit right there. So this is the construction of our boxes complete. We left these mitered into both sides of it and left these little rectangles. These are going to be our glue tabs. We removed them on this side. We created glue tabs here by mitering on both sides of, or excuse me, mitering, keeping it straight on these long rectangles and mitering in on those squares. It's harder to explain than it is to do. Okay, now we are ready to do some gluing. So this is going to give us kind of like a reinforced edge. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue these down flat while this is still open. It just makes it a little easier. I'm just using liquid glue for this, although if you had a very strong double-sided tape that you trusted, you could absolutely use that. But I'm just going to use my glue because it's more economical and I trust it better than, particularly for 3D projects, I trust it more than my score tape. So same thing over here, we're just going to glue those down flat. And like I said, you need 3 of these to create this project today. So you would repeat the same steps on all 3 of these. So this is what we have so far. Now I'm going to apply glue to the inside. So this is where we actually scored. I'm going to apply glue to the inside, so the sides facing the camera, of these 2 tabs right here. Okay? Just a little bit of glue to these. And then normally when you make a box, you would fold these to where they were the inside of the box. But I'm going to put cards and various other things inside of here, and I don't want those things to snag on these, so I'm going to actually glue these to the tab that does not have tabs. We're gluing tabs to the no tabs, all right? So I'm going to fold this box up, and I'm going to have this loose edge meet these score lines, okay? So we're going to do that little maneuver. I hope you can see that. So I'm going to do that on this side, make sure that we've got that nice and adhered, and I'm going to repeat that on this side too. So I'm going to take this loose edge here and meet that folded edge, that score mark inside, okay? Just like so, okay? I hope you can see that. And I'm just going to get my fingers in there to make sure that it is actually indeed adhered. Okay. Now the next part is we're going to apply glue all over that, all over this section here, including these small rectangles here. So as you can see, we have a nice kind of rounded over edge here because of this little tab that we created, okay? This is essentially going to do that for these parts, all right? So we need to apply glue all over that section there, okay? Not hard to do. And this will give us what will appear to be a very nice finished box. So to help you get this aligned, I recommend going ahead and folding over your little tab first and then using your fingers to kind of make sure that everything else is straight. Okay, that just is a little pro tip. Helps you kind of align things straight first. Okay, same thing over here. Apply glue all over, including our little tab here. I'm trying to make sure I get glue, especially toward these edges, so that we don't have things popping up. So again, I'm going to fold that in and fold our little tab in and then just kind of use my fingers to kind of shimmy things around to make sure that we've got everything adhering right. This is actually 120 pound, 120? Hold on, wait for it. 100 pound. 100 pound cardstock. This, I get all of my colored cardstock 12 by 12 and 8.5 by 11 from Cardstock Warehouse. I feel like that is a very economical place for me to get cardstock and colored cardstock with a solid core that is good quality and economical. So I've been pleased with my purchases from there. So this is in the color Real Gray from Color Plan. Yes, Real Gray from Color Plan, and I will list that below. So this is our box complete. Now I want to create some finger notches. So I have this big Fisker's punch. I think this is like 2 inches, and I'm just going to feed this in. I like to feed it in to where the opening is facing me so I can make sure I've got things kind of centered and how much I've got going. So I'm going to open this up just a little bit more so that I can actually get my whole punch in there. And then I'm going to just eyeball where the center is. And then I'm not going quite halfway. I'm going probably in a third, a quarter, somewhere in between there. And just eyeballing that it's somewhat in the middle. And then I'm going to take some elbow grease and punch. Then I'm going to flip this over and repeat that again. So I'm going to flip this over, and it kind of helped to kind of flip this back over just to see if I was kind of lining a line, getting in line with the original one. And I'm kind of using the borders right here to help me see if I'm somewhat in line with my first punch. And then I'm going to flip it back over, see if it looks okay. I feel like I need to shift that up just a touch. And then one more time, use some elbow grease and punch that. Because you are punching through 2 layers of that 100 pound cardstock right here. So I found if I went just a little bit past that, I could get a little bit more leverage and it would punch a lot nicer. So that's that. So those are all 3 boxes. I did the other 2 off screen just to save a little bit of time. And I used some good old Dollar Tree clamps to try to get those to adhere. So like I said, we've got 3 boxes that we've glued together. I didn't like so much in Miss Sherry's project that you could see that there were 3 boxes here, and I kind of messed up on one and glued it to the wrong spot. So we are going to actually cover this up with some pattern paper just to give it a more seamless look. You're still going to be able to see that, yes, there are indeed 3 boxes there, but I think I would have liked there to be some pattern paper there. So that's one of the things that I did change from the original project for Miss Sherry. So I have these 2 already glued together, and I'm going to go ahead and glue these ones together. Now I'm trying to see, so you've got a seam right here. I want to keep all of my seams going in the same direction just because I feel like it'll make it look nicer. So we need to do it this way. And then all of my seams are going that way. So I'm going to flip this over and apply glue to it. Once again, I'm trying to get glue close to the very edges just to ensure that this adheres well, that this doesn't eventually come apart. And that this really gives the look of it being a divided box instead of 3 separate boxes, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to stand this up and kind of push them together. Now, if you'll notice, and this doesn't bother me too much, and I think once you get like cards and everything else in there, I think once the box is finished, it's not going to be quite as noticeable, but my punches don't necessarily line up. Again, that doesn't necessarily bother me too much. I would like them to line up, but I think I would spend an exorbitant amount of time trying to get them to line up and it not be super awesome. And I may not put notches in all of the boxes. I may just put a notch here and a notch in this back one and call it good. That may be something that I do going forward. It just kind of depends. So here I'm just trying to push kind of toward the bottom and the sides, trying to make sure that this adheres. The clamps are going to make sure it adheres well at the top, but I want to make sure it obviously adheres well to the sides. Now, because we are, you know, doing all of this by hand, you may discover that it's kind of evident on this side more. All of my boxes are not necessarily level with one another. Again, we're making this by hand. So that's another reason why I wanted to use some pattern paper there, just because I don't cut things perfectly straight. I don't cut things perfectly even the same time, or the exact same every time. And so there was going to be some variation there. And to cover up my lack of precision, I guess, I wanted to be able to put some pattern paper there just to cover that up. So that's another reason why I wanted to do that. So I'm just going to let this adhere and just push for just a minute. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and take these off. I think we'll be okay. Okay, so that is okay. And actually, that really is bothering me. So I'm going to go ahead and take my punch and just try to even that up just a little bit. Like I said, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it is bugging me quite a bit. And then this side, it's really noticeable also. So this is not the end of the world. If you've got to go back and do a little bit of trimming, I can get this big old punch in there just fine. So, okay. Now I can sleep at night. Okay, so we are done with the punch. So I'm going to put that off to the side and get that out of our way. So now I want to cover up these seams. So I have 2 pieces of pattern paper here, and the pattern paper I'm using is from Hobby Lobby. It is called Disco Cowgirl. I have not seen it there in a while, so it may be discontinued or in their clearance section as of the filming of this video. So, but you can use any pattern paper you like. I'm just giving you a guide. So this goes on the sides of our box here, like this. And these measure 4 3/4 by 2 3/4. And if you have a pattern that you are using that is directional, these need to be in portrait. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. I think that the size of this paper is going to be just fine. So I'm going to take that same liquid glue and glue these down. So if you don't want to cover up the sides, maybe you're using really pretty pattern paper to make your boxes and you don't want to cover that up, then you do not need these 2 pieces of paper. But I'm using plain cardstock, or solid cardstock, not pattern paper, and so I felt like I needed to kind of cover those up. Again, I also don't cut things straight, so I felt like I needed to kind of conceal that a little bit. And again, these measure 4 3/4 tall by 2 3/4 wide. And that's one side. And then we're going to do that on this other side. And this also hides my oopsie. I glued tab to tab, not tab to no tab. And that is not correct. Remember, it is tab to the no tab side. All right, one more time. I'm trying to kind of match this up more toward the top of the box instead of the bottom, and then kind of shimmy it. I like liquid glue for this, especially. Again, I feel like I will get better adhesion if I use a liquid glue. Sorry, I'm kind of off screen. I'm like blind as a bat, y'all, so I gotta get things like right in my face. And I felt like this box was kind of shifting away from the other one, so I'm gonna try to get that adhered as best as possible. Maybe you will be a better paper trimmer than I am, a little more precise. Okay, so there's that. Now, this is the back of our box because we've got this seam right here, okay? So this is the front of our box, and I have a piece of paper. This is for the front of our box. So this is gonna go here, and you may want to mat your box before you punch it, and that's fine. I'm just gonna go ahead and glue it down and then punch it. And this measures 6 1/4 by 4 3/4, and this is again for the front of our box. And I would go ahead, I think what I might do is, okay, we're gonna see if I can manage this. So I'm gonna try to get this centered first as best I can. And then I'm gonna take my pencil and put a mark there and a mark there, just to kind of give me an idea on where this may be like a terrible idea. I'm going to find my pencil marks and try to get those aligned. And then I'm going to punch it again. I said we were done with the punch, didn't I? I lied to you. I'm sorry. Okay. So that didn't quite work like I thought. It didn't quite work like I thought it would, but that's okay. I think I'm going to have to punch that just a little bit more. No, we're okay. We'll be all right. I am going to erase my pencil marks though, because I didn't obviously get that right where I wanted it. But now we're going to go ahead and glue this down. So 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. If you want, you can go ahead and punch this all together. But again, you're going through multiple layers. And unless you've got like super awesome mega punch, it may not work, and you may have to do this separately anyway. Again, trying to get glue really close to those edges so that we can get really good adhesion, and we don't have to worry about this popping up and looking kind of unprofessional. Okay. Happy with my amount of glue here. And again, this is the front of our box because there is no seam. I'm going to try to get this centered on here like I did before. Side to side. This is not, there we go. That's a little better. Okay. And then I'm going to take my fingers and just kind of, especially around those edges, try to get that adhered down. And especially if you're making a 3-dimensional project like this box set here, I would really suggest using a heavyweight paper for it, just because it'll give it a more substantial feeling, and it'll look like it'll feel like quality to the recipient. Okay, so I'm going to get that glued down. Okay. All right. So that is the front of our box, the sides of our box, and of course, obviously, our 3 boxes. So now let's talk about the jacket, for lack of better words. So I have this piece of paper here. This is going to be our jacket. And I cut this to be a little bit wider than our boxes. I don't know if you can see that. But if I get my boxes kind of centered in there, it's just a little bit wider, not whiter, but wider with a D, than our boxes here. And in fact, I feel like I can cut that down just a little bit more. But before we do that, we're going to do some dry fitting here. So as of right now, this measures 6 1/2 by 10 1/2. Now this obviously has a direction. Cacti do not grow upside down. So in order to make sure that I get this pattern paper on here in the somewhat correct orientation, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to dry fit. So before you glue anything, you're just going to try and essentially make some folds. So I'm going to get this centered, and I'm going to try to get it to where it looks even top to bottom. You know, I don't have something like this going on. That looks pretty good. And I made it to where there would be a little bit of a lip, kind of like an overhang for, you know, a lid here. And I'm going to take my fingers, again, make sure that that is as straight as I can get it. And then I'm going to kind of bend my paper over the edge of my box here, okay? So I'm just taking my finger and bending it. I don't know how well you can see that, but just bending it over the edge of my box. Then I'm going to, again, try to keep that as straight as possible. It's bent over the edge of this part. I'm going to wrap it around, trying to keep it as straight as possible, and then I'm going to bend it over the edge of the back of this box. Okay, so like that. And then let's see if this touches the back. Almost. That's okay. So we're going to end up gluing this down flat to the back of this box to cover up this side, okay? So if there's a little bit of a border here, that's great. It'll look like you matted it and it was totally intentional. the way I designed it, I originally wanted this to go all the way to the bottom of this, and that's okay. So here, what we're gonna do, if you see we've got, you know, our little crease lines here. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my bone folder and I'm gonna go onto those crease lines, and then as I have it right now, it's obviously crooked. So I'm gonna try to straighten out those crease lines, those little dry fit lines we made, and I'm gonna try to straighten those out, okay? So there's that one. And then our next one is over here. So again, I'm going to go to that score mark. Again, I'm going to flip this over so I can actually see and ensure that I'm trying to get that somewhat straight. Okay. I'm going to show you another way you can do that I literally just thought of. Okay. So let's see how this works. So I'm just going to lay this over the top of here. That is actually pretty darn good. Okay. So one of the things that I want to do is I feel like this overhang is a little too much. It looks kind of weird. It looks weird to me. So I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. Now, the reason why I made it at 6.5 wide is because I wasn't sure how close I was going to be able to get these 3 boxes to one another, and I wasn't sure how precise I would be. So I gave myself a little bit of wiggle room. Again, if you are a much more precise cutter than I am and measurer, you probably won't have to do that. But for me, I had to do that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to my paper trimmer. Grab that. And you can always take off more, but you can't put it back. So I'm just going to take off about 1/8 of an inch, making sure that it's straight. And I'm just going to trim off about 1/8 of an inch off this whole thing. And then let's see how that looks as far as width-wise. So let's line that back up. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think that's about right. Okay, we don't have as much overhang in the back. We definitely don't have as much in the front, and the sides of the boxes are almost peeking out, but not quite. So I probably could have cut just a hair less off, but I think that'll be okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and glue this back to the back. Okay. It's not quite straight, is it? That's okay. That's okay. It'll be all right. This is a handmade box after all, right? And if that really bothers you, you can always try to just shimmy it a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and apply adhesive all over this large section right here that is essentially the back of our box. Again, applying a good amount of liquid glue around the edges. If you're not a fan of liquid glue, obviously use whatever adhesive of choice is yours. I like the liquid glue in the sense that it is more economical. I know for sure that I've got a good adhesion, and it gives me some wiggle room. All right, so again, this is the back of our box. I'm going to try to get this to line up as best I can. I'm going to do some shimmying because our liquid glue allows for that. Try to shift this over just a touch. Okay, I'm going to flip this over, and I forgot that we've got that little bit of that finger notch there, and I'm going to erase this because obviously they don't need to see that. That was for me, not for them. This is where I said that we might put a little pocket here. We'll see. Okay, so I'm just going to stick my hands in here and apply some pressure just to get this to sit right. And I'm looking at my sides from side to side, and I've got a pretty even margin from side to side. Okay, that's probably good enough for now. Okay, let's sit this back up, fold it over. Okay, so this is what we have so far. That looks pretty good to me. All right, the next thing we're going to do, I think I want to round these corners. I think that's what I want to do. So I'm going to grab my corner chomper from We Are Memory Keepers. They are called We Are Makers now, but when this came out and I bought it, it was called the We Are Memory Keepers company. So I'm going to take the actual 1/2 inch, which is the larger one. Let's start with the smaller one first, because you can always make it bigger. This is the 1/4 inch. That actually might be better. Yeah, that's going to be better. Okay. Yeah, I think it needed that. And it's less likely to snag. So there's that. We've got that part done. Now what I want to do is, how are we going to keep this closed? Because right now it wants to pop open, right? So I think I am going to do a magnet. So 2 things. If you're going to be gifting this to someone that has pacemaker or something like that, can't have magnets, small children, this is a way to, you may not want to do magnet. You may want to do something like a Velcro dot. But this is not like the thickest of paper, and I'm worried that over time this is going to start to try to fall apart. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure this section here. So let's see what we've got. Where's my ruler? Here we go. So this measures, what did we say? 6 1/4. So we'll measure it to 6 by, we'll reduce it by 1/4 inch. So 6 by 2 3/8. So let's do 6 by 2 1/8. And I'm sure I've got scrap paper somewhere around here. You could do something that accents the cover you already have, or you can match it if you've got scrap paper for that. So that is a little, and it's got a direction, so I don't want to use that one because it's a little too short. So let's go ahead and use this piece because it'll match that and the outsides. And it doesn't really have, I guess it does have cacti on it, so I guess it does have a direction. But to me, they looked like leaves when I first looked at them. So what did we say? 6 and, let's make it a little bit narrower. So I'm just going to eyeball that, y'all. And I said 2 1/8. So I'm going to cut off a piece that is 2 1/8. So 2 1/8. And then where's my little fingernail mark? There it is. 2 1/8 by like 6 1/8, 6 1/16, something like that. All right, and we're gonna put this here. But since we rounded those 2 corners, we need to round those 2 corners again. So let's grab that corner rounder one more time using that 1/4 inch, oops, that 1/4 inch diameter there. Okay, and now I'm gonna glue that onto there. But before I do that, I'm going to put a magnet underneath here, and then I will put the other magnet here. So let me show you how I do that. Okay, so I've got my 2 magnets. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember where I put my magnets, so I had to pause the video for a hot second to find it. So I'm just gonna put a dot of glue there, and then I'm gonna drop a magnet right there, and I'm gonna let that sit for just a second, just to give it just a hot second to adhere a little bit. And I tried to get it centered in the middle of the box. And the fact that this is like a light blue and there's silver accents, it kind of worked out nice. If you were thinking ahead, you could obviously put this magnet behind your pattern paper here, which is what we're gonna do on this panel. You could just repeat that for both magnets and it would work just fine. So what I'm gonna do, again, I just really wanna make sure that I've given that just a hot second to adhere. I'm gonna drop the other magnet on there, and that's gonna align your positive and negative sides. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put just a drop of glue on here. We're gonna make sure that this really adheres down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna raise my box, and I'm gonna make sure that I've got things aligned, you know, side to side, that the bottom of the box is on there right. And then I'm just gonna push gently. Oh, I guess too gently. Push too gently. Again, make sure that my box is kind of aligned, and I'm trying to find that magnet. Okay, so I see where my glue is. So I'm going to apply some more glue right there. This just gives you kind of an idea on where to apply your glue for your magnet. So I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to put the glue side back into the glue, just like that. Give that just a hot second, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply glue to our pattern paper piece here, and unclog my glue. So I'm going to apply glue liberally over this, because this is also going to help hold our magnet in place. Okay. And then we will flip that over and adhere this down, trying to keep our margins even. Okay. Then once you're happy with that, just press everything down. We'll press over your magnet. Get all the little glue, straggly bits off your fingers. I feel like I'm constantly covered in glue. Okay. So there is that. Okay. So now, when you close your lid, your magnets will catch, and it'll rip off the magnet there. I didn't let that one dry enough, so let's try that again. So we'll put that down there. And I will leave that magnet alone so that it's got time to dry. All right, so I know that that's the side that needs to go down. Okay. So I'll let that dry a little bit better this time. I've got some glue kind of oozing out, but that's okay. All right, so pro tip, now that we're putting these together, I would go ahead and adhere your magnet if that's what you're going to use underneath that, and then you don't have to worry about little kids swallowing it because it's hidden. Okay, so there's that. So we're going to make a teeny tiny mini envelope to go there. So I have the mini envelope punch board. I purchased this off of Amazon just because there was a project that I saw that I haven't made yet, but I needed a teeny tiny envelope, and my regular size envelope punch board didn't go that small. So this one does. So I'm going to make the 2.5 by 3.5 inch envelope. So this says I need a piece of paper that is 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. And our first punch is going to be at 2 3/4. So my paper is already at 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. Maybe little teeny tiny stylus. I'm not gonna lie, this is actually the first time I've used this punch board. First time. So you punch and then you score. Now you don't have to worry about that 2 3/4 mark anymore. What you're gonna do is you're essentially going to align the middle of, you're gonna align this little arm here with your score mark. Okay? So once I have that aligned, I'm gonna punch it and score it again. I'm gonna your third one should usually align with your original score mark again, your original like start line. I'm gonna punch and score again. And then I'm gonna rotate that again, lining up that little arm with my score line, punch and score again. And this is what you're left with. Little teeny tiny, little bitty guy. Okay. Now this also, if you go to this opposite side, has a corner rounder. So I'm actually going to use that. And you can find the teeny tiny corner, or you can find the corner rounder on the other one as well. That one also has a notch, just because you can do a couple other things with that one that you cannot do with the mini. So what we're gonna do now is we are going to put that little guy away. It's like darling. And then we're gonna go ahead and fold and burnish on all of the little score lines that we created. I don't know if you can hear my dog barking in the background, but if you can, I apologize. So now you'll fold in the two sides, and I rounded the corners on the larger flaps here, but then you have a teeny tiny little envelope. So now I just kind of want to see, okay, this fits a lot better. This fits a lot better. All right, so it's gonna go like that. However, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it to where it opens toward the top. So I'm gonna actually round this corner as well. Oh, I'm gonna try to get it straight though. Straight's handy. Okay, there we go. Little bitty guy. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close up this envelope. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually fold it. Let's see. I kind of find that I like how it folds better one way over the other. Those are pretty even as far as how I like them. So let's just do this. And I'm gonna apply glue to both edges of this. And then I'm gonna fold that one, and I'm gonna apply glue all over this one side over here, and kind of try to get it toward the edge here. And then we should have a completely adhered envelope. So to get this to be able to open and close, what I might do is, let's see, I could do a Velcro dot. However, my Velcro dots are a bit bigger and I don't know that I could hide it very well, but let's see. One second. In my stash, I actually have some Velcro dots that are a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna make sure that those are already aligned, and then I'm gonna try to get this as close to the top without going over as possible. And then I'm just gonna fold that over and push down very firmly. Let's see. So yeah, we're very close to that actually coming up into there where we do not want it. So I'm just gonna glue that down, and that's gonna be how we are able to open and close this little mini envelope here. I think I'm gonna place this in the center, but let me first see. I don't think my magnet is completely dry. I can see kind of the glue oozed out a little bit. And that's okay. It means I got glue everywhere, right? Let's see. I really don't want that to pop off again. If that pops off again, we're gonna have to do some sort of embellishment over this to help secure that down, because that's the last thing you want, is that to keep coming off. So I think for the future ones that I make, for teachers and that kind of thing, I am gonna hide the magnet underneath this pattern paper here. But let's just kind of see something real quick. If I actually glue that there, is that going to bulge the box a lot and look goofy? If you look at it from the top, it does bulge it a little bit. Let's see. And I think that I want some more pattern paper here just to give this just a little bit more stability and weight. So let's measure that. That is, we'll make it 2 7/8 by, what's this one? 2 7/8 by 6. Let's find some more of that paper. So let's cut another piece of that off before we adhere our little envelope section down. Sorry, I bumped the camera there. So 2 7/8 by 6. I don't need to round any corners on that, but before we glue it down, let's just double check that we like that. Yeah, that'll be good. Okay, I just want to give that just a little bit more weight and substantiability there. Substantiability a word? Or did I just make that up? That is very possible that I just made that word up. Okay, I'm just going to glue that kind of centered as best I can. Okay, like that. Okay, now I'm gonna glue our little envelope down. So this is my little opening here. So I want that to be this way. I don't know why, I just do. So I'm gonna apply glue all over this. If you wanted to, you could make this removable and apply magnets or Velcro dots to the back of this and then adhere that down, and that would make this removable. So that's an option if you wanted to, but I'm just gonna glue this down straight and flat. But I may do that with the other ones just to give myself some options and ways to keep me from getting kind of bored with the process. So that is our little envelope pouch, and that is our box almost done. So one of the things that I wanted to add to it, when she made hers, she had because she was using a file folder, so obviously they're a lot longer than 12 by 12, but she made it to where it kind of wrapped all the way around and then gave herself like a base. But I'm gonna make myself my own platform. So this is what I did. I have a piece of scrap chipboard. This is actually from a book that my littles trashed because they are littles. It was one of those little chipboard books. And I am gonna remove the backer. I already applied double-sided adhesive to all of this. And I made these, I don't think the number I have on there is correct. I made these 6 3/8 by 6 3, no, don't listen to me. I made them 3 3/8 by 6 3/4. Okay, so that number is correct. And I just wanted to give myself a little bit of a platform. Okay, so this piece of chipboard, I usually get graphics medium weight chipboard off of Amazon, and that's what I would normally use. However, I had this little book that my kids trashed, and so I decided to kind of recycle it. So this is 6 3/4 by 3 3/8, and then I have a piece of pattern paper that I'm going to use. This measures 4 1/4 by 7 1/2, and I'm just going to try to center this, top, bottom, side, all that jazz, as best as possible. And actually mine is actually smaller. I made it bigger in the measurements that I will make yours bigger. Make yours 4 1/4 by 7 1/2. That'll give you just a little bit more room. So now what I'm going to do is try to get this paper to fold over. Like I said, make yours the measurements that I tell you. So you don't have to fight with this paper so much. Okay, then once you have kind of folded that over, you're going to snip off these little corners here just to miter them so there's not so much bulk. Okay. So I'm not actually going all the way to the chipboard. I'm leaving just a little bit of a gap there so that we don't have any of that little chipboard hanging out. So then once you've done that, I'm going to peel off the backers of my, actually I'm going to apply some glue. I am going to peel off my backers though. I am going to peel off my backers. And then we will apply glue. I'm going to apply some liquid glue here and here. I'm going to grab a paper towel because I know that glue is going to get everywhere. Fold that over and try to get that to adhere. Now, one of the things that I'm going to fight with, and I realize that, is that this obviously has a coating because it has like pictures on it. So, you know, a strong double-sided adhesive would probably have worked better here, but we are going to make this work. All right, I'm going to get this other side, fold that over, hold it down just to get it kind of started, and then I'm going to take my bone folder and really try to like squish that down. I'm going to run my bone folder along this edge here just to kind of square that off a little bit. Do that over here also. Just really try to squish that down using the side of my bone folder and then square that off with the other side there. And then I already have double-sided tape along these kind of longer edges, close enough to the border. So we should be okay on those sides. And once again, I'm just going to use my bone folder, ensure that that is indeed making good adhesion. And then use my bone folder side to again square that off. And then if you've got any like bits that are kind of poking out, just tap it on the edge of your desk and that'll kind of round those off. So now I have a piece of paper here. Let's make sure this is actually going to fit with nothing showing. Okay, this is going to go on the bottom, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I just didn't want there to be obvious like paper sticking out. So I'm going to take my liquid adhesive once again and go to the very edges of it, and even some in the middle, because that will once again give me some wiggle room. This is a much tighter fit than yours will be if you follow the measurements I gave you. Yours won't be quite as tight of a fit. But the liquid glue does give me just a touch of wiggle room there. Okay, so you can't see any of the chipboard hanging out there, so that's good. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of clean this up. Use my bone folder to kind of smash everything together, make sure we're getting good contact everywhere. Okay, that looks pretty good. Like I said, this is going to be the bottom. So this is actually going to be the part that you see. And I'm going to set this on top of there. And I just wanted to see how that looked. And we're going to try to give ourselves an even border all the way around. And I just wanted this to have like a substantial platform to sit on. Like I said, with hers, because she was using a file folder, and file folders, excuse me, are a little bit thicker than, you know, pattern paper in general. She used her file folder to create this kind of base here, but I wanted to make something a little more substantial and something that I could use my scrap chipboard and 12 by 12 paper, because that's what I have in my stash. So I'm going to flip this box upside down and I'm going to apply glue all over. Again, trying to make sure I get toward the edges. And I'm designing this with the intent that they will use this like on display, that it'll be something kind of quick that they can, you know, grab from. And that's another reason why I wanted it to kind of have its own more substantial base to sit on. So I'm just trying to eyeball it and make sure that I've got an even border side to side, front and back. That looks pretty darn good to me. And then I'm just going to press until I feel like it is not going to move. So while I'm holding this, let's cuss and discuss for a second. So one of the things that I intend to put in, this one is for my sister, but I'm going to repeat these for my kids back to school. So I will put cards in one of the boxes, cards and envelopes, and it'll fit about 6 fairly flat, you know, one layer cards-ish, cards and envelopes very easily. If you get a lot of embellishments on there, that will obviously determine how many you can get in there. But if they're pretty much one layer, you can get between 6 and 8 cards and envelopes in one box comfortably. In another one of the boxes, I'm actually going to put, for my kids' teachers, I'm actually going to put one of these. I get these from Dollar General. This is actually what I've been using to take notes for my videos lately. But I get these from Dollar General. They're actually a sticky note on one side, and this will actually fit in the box comfortably. So let me show you. Hey, the magnet didn't pop off. So this will fit in there. I'm going to put that in one of them, and then cards in another one. And then in the last box, I think I'm going to put some pins. I'm going to put some like push pins and what is the word? Paper clips. Woo! Paper clips, push pins, just like sticky notes, office supply stuff. I may even put another envelope in there. Not envelope, like notepad in there. And just cover them to match, or put them in their own little individual baggies. Obviously, if I'm going to do push pins, I won't put those in baggies because that'll just poke everybody. That's not cool. The gift that makes you bleed your own blood. That's not cool. So I think that's what I'm going to do for the teacher ones. But for my sister, I'm going to just put some cards and envelopes in each of the pockets. But those are some ideas on things that you can do. And so this is our box all complete. Obviously, this is not all the way dry yet. But in fact, I'm just going to flip this upside down and push from the bottom. But this is our box. So this was the bottom. Like I said, if you do your dimensions, like I mentioned in the in the video, then you won't have such a tight fit with your bottom jacket. But this is our box complete. I think it turned out very well, especially considering I didn't necessarily have the products that she used, but it was very much inspired by Miss Sherry here on YouTube. She is the Posh Paper Lady. We've got our magnetic closure, and we have our finished sides of our box that we covered with pattern paper just to kind of hide the fact that there are 3 boxes in one, and then we gave it a more substantial base to sit on. We gave it a little pocket on the inside. Likewise, I don't know why I didn't think of this, but you could actually just adhere this piece of pattern paper down and then do another pocket. So instead of making an envelope to go in here, just cut another piece of paper that's a bit shorter and almost make like a just a pocket, not necessarily. So imagine this flap isn't even here, and you could just do a pocket like that to where it's open. That's another option. So yeah, that's my project for today. So this is for back to school. There will be a few more projects coming out with ideas for back to school teacher appreciation, and you don't have to necessarily give these in the month of August, but you can use and save these to give to them before Thanksgiving or spring break or Christmas. Obviously teacher appreciation, just to let them know that you're thinking about them. And yeah, that is the project for today. So I know it was a long one, and I appreciate you spending time with me. I appreciate you kind of hanging in there as we kind of came up with this on the fly to an extent. If you have questions, feel free to drop those in the comments below, and I will try to answer them as best I can. But until then, we will see you next time on the next video, next Tuesday, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.